Welcome back to the Mentor Show, which offers quick lessons packaged within minisodes for busy founders and startup leaders like you. I'm Adil, and I'm being mentored live and unscripted by Ed, who's built, sold, turned around, and scaled startups all the way to the New York Stock Exchange. He's based in the US, a developed economy, and I'm based in Dubai, a hub within an emerging economy. And we compare notes. This is real talk, no scripts, no theory. Let's get into it. You would ask them why they would not fit. Why is that?
Well, I think that people just assume they're very flexible and can fit anywhere. I don't agree with that. Let me give you a story that applies to me directly. I had a startup. We went out and raised a lot of money. In the first 18 months, we grew like nobody's business. We were a rocket ship. We got to roughly 100 million in top line revenue. We had offices in 9 countries. We had over 1,000 employees. And I thought it's time to bring in a COO. And so we scoured the market, and we found a regional chief operating officer from IBM. And the man had the perfect credentials for the job description that we wrote. He interviewed very well across 8 executives, co-executives, peers, that he would actually have some of them direct report to him as COO. And his resume was impeccable. His track record was impeccable, and he failed. I had to fire him. I had to fire him 6 months into the relationship. And part of the reason, a good part of the reason, was culture. He came from IBM. He was accustomed to big company infrastructure, lots of secretaries, lots of automated business processes. At the time, we were only a 2-year-old company. We were growing so fast, it was unbelievable. And we grew that fast because we had executives that could wear different hats. They could make decisions quickly with imperfect data. They would get their hands dirty by doing their own travel arrangements, expense accounts. Those are 2 very simple tasks. The gentleman that we hired expected that he'd have a full-time assistant, and he actually tried to bring his full-time assistant on board to do things like his expense report and travel arrangements. And in a bigger business, he's not wrong. That's not the best use of that person's time, but we just weren't there yet. And the cultural fit was really rough. So it didn't work out. Right. And we lost 9 months and all that money that we spent and all that opportunity cost that was squandered because we didn't pay attention to the cultural fit of where that individual came from and what he really needed to be successful. And I think if we had asked more pointed questions around culture and fit, we would not have made that mistake, I think. But I mean, there's no guarantee. Hiring is one of the toughest things. And then figuring out if you hired the right resources, an even harder assessment to make out had that person start in your business. Because at the end of the day, you want them to be successful. You want them to add value to your business. The team wants that person to be successful. And quite frankly, here's one other point that I'd make. As CEO, just before you make the decision, you should sit down one-on-one with all of your other executives and say, should we hire Muhammad? If yes, why? Why are you so excited to have this person start? If no, why? What are the biggest concerns you have about this person? And you have that with each team member individually. Then you bring the whole team together. Based on everything you people have said, here's my decision and here's why I'm going to make it. Without mentioning names, these are the concerns. Does anyone want to add to this? Without naming names, these are the positives as to why this person should be part of our organization. Does anyone want to add to this or subtract from this? Make the decision. And the point in having that group come together is to say, you all spoke to this candidate. You all gave your opinions. Hopefully you gave incredibly honest opinions. I'm now making the final decision. This is the direction we're all going. I assume you're all on board and you're looking for people to nod or say yes, because what you don't want to do is have someone on your team be this passive aggressive. Yes, I agree with you publicly, but in the background, in private, they're doing everything to undermine the success of this new person, right? That's how I would run a high-level interview for a new executive coming on board, coming from a very different cultural operating environment.
Yeah, thank you. The undermining bit is always a question that is challenging for me, because how do you deal with this situation? Sometimes you have someone who's fully capable coming on board, just because you've got this passive aggressive person within the team, they actually might fail, and that could cost the company. I know this is probably a nested question within this, but what would you do to prevent this or manage this situation if it happened? And as a CEO, you've not been able to detect it early.
Many decades ago, it's sometimes shocking that I can actually say this with a straight face. Many decades ago, I had one of the most successful venture capitalists in the US. He asked me what I thought the greatest strength and the greatest weakness of a business could be. And at the time, I was in my late 20s, early 30s. I wasn't brilliant by any stretch of the imagination. I was just really thinking about some of the decisions I've made. They were great decisions. Some were absolutely horrific decisions, bad decisions. And they all revolved around people. So the people you work with, the people you pick, the people you interact with on a day in, day out basis as a founder CEO are either going to make or break the opportunity. So really, when I sit back and I think about what's the role of a chief executive officer, really at the end of the day, I would say that the vast majority of that person's responsibility is, number one, do not run out of money. And CEO does not really mean chief executive officer. It means cash extraction officer. Go out and find money. You're going to have to extract investment from a lot of different parties out there, right? That's your job. Don't run out of money. Your second job is professional psychologist. You need to understand the human pulse of your business, what makes it work. And you're going to focus on your first level direct reports and probably even the second level indirect reports. So not just the executives, but one level of management below. And you're not there to tell them what to do. That's kind of the very last thing on your checklist. You want to understand how they think, understand how they feel, and give directional guidance. Because if you can get the person to own the decision, own the direction, own the strategy, your job just got easier, right? Those are really the two big tasks. Now, if you still have spare time in the day, sure, go stick your fingers in sales and help the sales executive close more deals. Go stick your nose into customer success and make sure that all of your customers are happy and want to buy more products. Absolutely, if you have the gift, go sit in engineering and help them figure out what the next feature set or product is going to be. But that is a small portion of your job. The biggest portion is don't run out of money. Make sure your people are happy, productive, and operating at their best levels. And your best friend is probably your CFO. Your CFO should be your business partner, because that person, your CFO, should give you advance warning when you're running out of money, should give you advance warning when a product is not performing as expected. And you're going to have to start thinking about, do you keep it? Do you improve it? Do you shut it down?
That's it for this minisode. Big thanks to Ed and to all of you for tuning in. If this sparked something, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one, and make sure you share it within your network. Got a question for Ed? Drop it within the comments. See you next time.
Please note, the views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the host and guests and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of any affiliated organization. The content provided is for informational purposes only and should not be considered as professional advice. We encourage listeners to conduct their own research and consult with relevant professionals before making any business or career decisions.